looking downfield, launching downfield, going for it all! It is caught! There's Williams! Speed is Kittle! A big play! And a stiff arm! George Kittle! Flag fly! And Manning's going to heave one. There's a flag. That just
Ladies, gentlemen, and all those in between or outside of it, welcome to Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan, right here on the Fantasy Football Network, coming to you every Monday evening until week 1 of the NFL season. I am your host, Evan Sather. Tonight, my guest is a man who helped me get my start in doing fantasy football live shows. You can find him on Club Fantasy FFL as well as the Football Guys. Please welcome to the show, Ryan Weisse. Ryan, great to have you back on the show, my friend. Just on a different YouTube channel, but we're here to stay this time. How you doing, my man?
I am doing well. I'm glad to be here. You guys have an amazing crew at the Fantasy Football Network, so I'm glad to join the airwaves and share them with you.
Always a pleasure, too. So for those of you listening at home, I absolutely meant what I said. It was just a couple of years ago when I appeared on the end of August of 2 years ago of Mock It Like It's Hot.
Yeah.
That was my first live show on a YouTube channel that actually got views, unlike the other channel I was a part of that was struggling to get any viewership whatsoever, focusing heavily on DraftKings DFS lineup building and talking about the strategies behind it and stuff that was kind of such a niche within a niche. Very difficult to get a crowd going on something like that, but I needed the better crew as well, something that's people with a better vision, and here we are with the Fantasy Football Network, and lovely to share this all with great guests like yourself, Ryan. So you've been busy with Club Fantasy FFL as well. What's been going on with that lately? Tell us more about the mock drafts you guys have going too.
Yeah, so we do a mock draft show every single Saturday morning. We try to do all leagues. Obviously, like during June, we went with a lot of the Scott Fishbowl mocks. I was actually on a Scott Fishbowl mock with you guys as well in June. We started pivoting more towards redraft, all the same kind of stuff. I mean, here's the thing. There's plenty of room for all of us to produce this content, but we do it every Saturday morning, so that way we're not directly competing with you. But very similar content. My whole premise always was to learn through mock drafting. There's no such thing as a bad mock draft. You learn and you get better. And so that's kind of been a thing. Other than that, we've been releasing little short episodes for every single NFL team this entire summer. We're, I think 26 teams down now. We also have articles to go with those on the website. So a lot of fun stuff going on at clubfantasyffl.com. Plus my rankings are always available on the website.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we're missing right now at the Fantasy Football Network. We don't have our website ready to go yet, but thank goodness that the Fantasy Pros platform lets you share your top 12 or top 24 rankings for Dynasty or the regular draft or whatever format that you want.
Absolutely.
So I'm at least able to share that more publicly with people in the meantime until we can get our website up and going. Club Fantasy FFL, you guys are just a couple of, I don't know how many exact subscribers away, but you guys are just shy of 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah, it's been a big summer with us hitting these mock drafts. I love that you're doing an 8-team mock draft today. I was talking to you a little bit about this before the show. There's a real need for 8-team content out there. We recently did our 8-team mock draft, and we saw our viewership and we saw our followers skyrocket. And I hope the same for you guys over here, because you're putting out great content multiple nights of the week, but certainly on Mondays. So
there are so many smaller leagues, like 8 and 10 teams, that just do not get the love that they deserve. And 100%. People absolutely need this because the viewership and the playership is absolutely out there for folks that play in these smaller leagues. They need to know how to draft for these strategies too. There's just too much love for the typical 12-team mock drafts. I've seen the viewership for these as well. You guys do it over at Club Fantasy FFL as well, which I think is fantastic. But Speaking of Club Fantasy FFL's YouTube channel, I have the link in the description below. Give them a subscribe if you haven't already. They are just short of 2,000 subscribers. I'm sure they'd greatly appreciate it as well.
Yes, we would.
Absolutely. So Football Guys content I know has not ramped up yet. Do you have any articles coming up for them though?
So I don't do a ton of content for Football Guys, as you pointed out. Basically, I do 3 every summer. For those who don't know, I work customer service at Football Guys. So if you are a Football Guys client and you have an issue and you send an email, you're probably talking to me. And I absolutely love that. I do 3 articles every summer. My favorite article just dropped. So I pitched this 4 years ago when I started at Football Guys, and it has become my baby. On August 1st every year, I release Welcome Back to Fantasy Football. And what I do is I go by all 32 teams and break down just the basic fantasy relevant changes, the faces that left, the faces that are there. Our Dave Kluge told a really interesting story in the background. I hope Dave doesn't mind me sharing this, that he was talking to a league mate of his who really understands and knows football and was talking about how he couldn't wait to see Fernando Mendoza. He couldn't wait to see Fernando Mendoza play this year. And Kluge told him, I think Kirk Cousins is going to start a big part of this year. And the guy goes, wait, Kirk Cousins is in Las Vegas? And so that's just like, that was how I started this article 4 years ago. Was a good friend of mine told me as a teacher now he doesn't have time to read all the news. And that was where it clicked for me. So I just break this down team by team. This guy's in, this guy's out. Now you know who the fantasy starters are for this season. So
it's a brilliant idea for any website whatsoever to sum up everything that you missed. If you're the type of person that doesn't care to keep up with it over the summer, and then you start your drafts in August or Labor Day weekend, bam, this is everything you need to know. Just wanted to give the people a quick sneak peek of what you can find on footballguys.com under the articles section, under the beginners subsection. You'll find this article right away, written by our none other than our guest right now, Ryan Weisse. So I'm not going to scroll all the way. We want you guys to click and read it.
I'm very proud of my very first TLDR there, and that is there are now 2 B. Robinsons in Atlanta. Don't get scammed in a fantasy trade.
If only, right?
Yep.
So we're I gotta add you to this other frame here since I forgot to do that before the show. There we go. So this is the format that we're looking at this evening for this mock draft. The only mistake I made is the bench. We're gonna have 8 bench spots instead of 5, being that we have the shorter league. That means you get the bigger rosters as well, so that you don't have just too much plentiful great talent on the waiver wire. I'm sure a lot of the 8-teamer leagues participants understand the larger rosters for that part as well. So without further ado, I think we're gonna get this thing started. Ryan, my friend, are you ready to get this started?
Let's rock and roll.
We're gonna do it. I'm gonna click start, and we're gonna kick it off with Frito Bandito, a quick favorite of ours here on the show, kicking it off from the 1 spot.
Frito, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. You were about to read everybody off, I'm sure. Frito kind of came out of nowhere. He's in every mock draft now. Shout out to Frito, a very active member of the community.
For sure. I have so I think I forgot to mention this actually, no, I did mention this, but I have the 3 spot. I learned early this evening in the 8-team 2-quarterback league that I'm not the commissioner of it, but it's a $50 league that I'm a part of, and this is going to be good for me too, to see what could I possibly do from this spot. I don't anticipate anybody taking quarterbacks ahead of me. I think it's going to be either running back or wide receiver. So that being, my league personally is a lot more conservative with quarterback. And so far, as we get to Duarte 5656, we've only had 1 quarterback go so far in this 2-quarterback league. I'll be curious to see what you do as you're up here with your pick. So far, we've gotten through Jahmyr Gibbs, Josh Allen, Bijan Robinson, Jamar Chase, and Puka Nacua. I think it's interesting to see how much higher Puka Nacua went in the wide receiver column. I would much rather have Jackson Smith and Jigba over Puka Nacua, to be honest with you.
Interesting.
In the first round, I don't usually stress about it because you really can't mess that up, but I have JSN as my top wide receiver on the season. So, Ryan, am I crazy for thinking JSN is the most valuable wide receiver in fantasy football?
Crazy is not a term I would throw around lately. I think when you look at Puka Nacua's body of work, and obviously he has some crazy attached to him as well, but when you look at his body of work and when you look at the upside of Jamar Chase, I would take both of them. I think it's a very close race. I like JSN, but I have slightly moved Amon-Ra St. Brown ahead. I just question a lot going on in Seattle with the Super Bowl hangover. You lose Kenneth Walker. You essentially have no established running game right now. If we're being very honest, we hope Jadarian Price is going to be a thing. I think JSN is going to be fine. But what I do find interesting about Brian Fleury coming in from San Francisco, Fleury's been in San Francisco for a while. San Francisco has not had an established wide receiver one for a while. And I want to see Brian Fleury create an offense around a wide receiver one. I'm not saying JSN is a bad pick or I'm scared of JSN or anything along those lines. What I am saying is I could see a small step back into very good instead of great, if you will. So like, he's still a first round pick. He's still a top 4 wide receiver for me, but I will admit when I updated my rankings today, only by a very small margin, Amon-Ra St. Brown overtook him for the 3 spot. So
yeah, so I'm still just super high on JSN because they don't really have anybody as a strong wide receiver 2 in that particular offense. So yeah, I'm not that worried about it pertaining to JSN's production. I'm going to go ahead and grab Justin Jefferson as a value pick for the next wide receiver off the board. But when I look at the other teams that are ahead of him, Jamar Chase has T. Higgins, also a great wide receiver. Puka Nacua has Devontae Adams, who's also still a great wide receiver, even if he might be a bit out of his prime at this point. And CeeDee Lamb has George Pickens, who is also a pretty young, youthful, tremendous talent. So that's at least the logic I have with valuing JSN. Brian Fleury, their offensive coordinator, was the run game coordinator and the tight ends coach for the 49ers last year, which I think is also going to be good for somebody like an A.J. Barner. I am not that worried about the Seahawks offense, but like you said, we got to see what the run game looks like. Charbonnet's not going to be ready for week 1. Ken Walker is gone. I don't know why they didn't bring him back, but their loss is the Chiefs' gain. So at this point, like based off of what I'm talking about here, is the lack of competition beneficial for JSN, or is that not going to matter that much?
If you'd asked me the same exact question last year, I would have been like, well, can defenses key on him, especially now with Kenneth Walker gone? Can defenses key on him? After seeing what he did last year, I don't care if defense is key on him, putting it bluntly. I think he is going to do very well regardless of the situation. And so that is not a concern of mine like it once was on whether or not defenses were going to key on him. This is a different team than last year, but I think Jadarian Price can step in. Let's put it bluntly. Kenneth Walker is a very good running back. He was never elite. That wasn't the part of his game we were ecstatic about, if you will. And so I'm not overly concerned about Jadarian Price stepping in for Kenneth Walker, I guess is the best way to put it. So
yeah, I think a lot of people are too low on Jadarian Price, to be honest, because I think he absolutely is going to get the work, even if Zach Charbonnet comes back. You don't spend a 32nd pick overall in the back of the first round if you're not serious about running back. To spend a first-round pick on a running back is serious business. You plan on playing him.
Yep. And you do it to get that 5th-year option. And obviously the fantasy community was burned by Clyde Edwards-Helaire a few years ago. So we hope that's not going to be the case with Jadarian Price. But the thing is, if we had done our homework on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this guy was like 5'7", 165 pounds. It was never going to work. So if we had been honest with ourselves, we would have been in a better spot with CEH.
Well, I mean, there are plenty of 5'9", 5'10" running backs who are like 200 pounds of pure muscle, similar to like a Kyle Manun guy who can just plow right through people. Came out of the Rutgers system where they just run like they're angry at the ground, and they can make it work with the right technique and skill set. Absolutely. But CEH just didn't have what it took to translate to the NFL level.
Yeah, I had read a story about him after his second year that he had some like spleen thing that was causing him to not be able to put weight on. And so like, I'm not going to hold it against him like it was a CEH problem, but all in all, it wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the right match. So
yeah, unfortunately for the Chiefs, like hopefully Ken Walker is going to be the guy for the Chiefs at this point, being that they haven't really had a stud since I'm thinking on the Jamal Charles, I think, was their last like stud running back.
Yeah, they just kept finding guys they could plug and play in there, and it's clearly worked for them. It's just how long is it going to continue to work? So,
Well, we'll have to see what Andy Reid does now that they have Eric Bieniemy back as their offensive coordinator. No more Matt Nagy doing running back draws up the middle and wide receiver flat routes to make the Chiefs offense about as numb as humanly possible. So this is going to be a good resurgence here for the Kansas City Chiefs and a really bad offense for the New York Football Giants, who now have Matt Nagy as their offensive coordinator. And so far, we haven't seen a ton of Giants go off the board yet. Frito Bandito did take Malik Neighbors at the 5-1. That's his fourth wide receiver off the board, which I think is just unbelievable value for a guy like him. Because you can, even if he's going to start of the season on PUP, you're sticking him in IR and you're going to grab another value piece off the waiver wire. You've already got Drake London, Nico Collins, and George Pickens. Frito Bandito is set in a format like this.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I'm not going to discount the fact that it's an 8-team league, but in a league where you can start 5 wide receivers, loading up on wide receiver is never a bad idea. And Neighbors is that like enigmatic. You don't know what's going on right now. All signs point to him being fine, and if he is fine, if you get him where we're getting him in drafts right now, he's an absolute steal. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. One of the things you always have to be careful for in leagues like this, and you kind of pointed this out earlier, where Josh Allen at that time was the only quarterback who had even went. In a 2-quarterback league, no matter the size, you have to let the kind of draft dictate how you're going to handle the quarterback situation. The folks who are not drafting quarterback right now are being given a gift that the rest of us are also not drafting quarterback. Oh, the double tight end snipe in this round is not my favorite thing to happen. I'm not loving how that went down.
Well, the good thing is that we're finally coming into an NFL era in which we're starting to see the tight end become the focal point of more and more offenses. I think a lot of people were inspired by Travis Kelce and the Chiefs because Brock Bowers is the top receiver on the team for the Raiders. Trey McBride is the top receiver on the team for the Cardinals. Tyler Warren is the top receiver on the team for the Colts. Colston Loveland is probably not going to be the top receiver, but as evident by last year, he's going to get fed plenty. So we are now seeing this era in the NFL. How many other tight ends, at least at this stage, as you're making your next pick, are you impressed with? You pick Jalen Hurts anyway, but there are still plenty of great tight ends left on the board. Are you as bullish to grab a tight end as compared to a few years ago when like the top 3 or 4 tight ends were the most valuable and otherwise they were dart throws?
Yeah, I'm with that strategy still. There are a lot of folks I feel like who've went into the camp of there are 2 tight ends or there are even 1 tight end and then everybody else. I believe there are 4 with a borderline 5th. I will talk about my 4 and I will save my 5th, and I won't talk about the guys I don't like. I do believe it's Bowers, it's McBride, it's Loveland, it's Warren. Those are the 4 tight ends I want to walk out of my draft with. So I had a chance to get them earlier, but I knew I wanted to load up on running back earlier. When I was looking at that Garrett Wilson pick, I said one of them has got to make it back to me. Now, I should have figured with you picking ahead of me, Loveland wasn't going to make it back. I did not anticipate Duarte, though I've drafted enough with Duarte. I should have anticipated it. I didn't anticipate him taking Warren. There's one more tight end I trust. The issue being I don't mind playing what I call the ADP game. And so I'll wait and see if he's going to continue to make it back to me. I'm also not upset if I don't get him. So like, it's just one of those things. Great pick by Vince there. David Montgomery was one of the last running backs I wanted to add to my roster. So this is, I'm playing too many games because the thing is, it's obviously hindsight's 2020. When I look back at previous picks, I'm like, I didn't need Jalen Hurts there. I could have waited and grabbed David Montgomery, but I wanted to play the game and see if he would fall to me. But back to the tight end question, I think there are 4, possibly a 5th that belongs into that conversation. And there went the 5th by Mike. So now I hate all tight ends. Tucker Kraft is the 5th guy in that conversation for me. I am one who is down on Harold Fannin, not so much on Fannin the player, on the Cleveland Browns as a team. And I understand they weren't good last year either. I have this weird thing. I follow coaches. I follow their patterns. What worries me, I'm just going to grab no, I'm not. What worries me, about this team and this situation is that Mark Andrews is coming out of 2 straight years with only 75 targets. That's terrifying to me. And so I don't know what to make out of Harold Fannin, who's going to need over 100 targets. So I call the tight ends a top 5. I know there are a lot of folks out there who call them a top 6. But for me right now, it's a clear top 5. And Tucker Kraft, if you look at his games not hurt last year, he was like the tight end 2 in fantasy. Don't sleep on Tucker Kraft and calling this a top 5. So.
Yes, Tucker Kraft is another example of the focal point of the Packers offense. They don't have a top wide receiver. It's Tucker Kraft when he's healthy. Harold Fannin, he's the top receiver on the Browns until their rookie wide receivers show otherwise. Yeah. But until then, we're going to assume it's Harold Fannin. Granted, Shedeur Sanders is still trying to be an NFL relevant running back, but quarterback. He's probably going to end up being a running back because he's going to have to run for his life a lot with how awful that offensive line is, even though they did invest in their offensive line a little bit, unlike the Cincinnati Bengals. So for whatever that's going to be worth, maybe that'll help Quinshawn Judkins, who Frito Bandito took as his second running back at the 7-1, which I love Judkins as a running back value pick because being a Cleveland Brown, I think, is the reason why his ADP falls so low. He's gonna be the focal point of that offense when they can't throw the football, just like Devon Achane in Miami. I don't understand why he falls so low.
Yeah. Achane, I think everybody just wants to be terrified of Miami, putting it bluntly. I think they want to be worried about that team. They want to be worried about Tua Tagovailoa, Malik Willis taking over for Tua Tagovailoa, low passing volume, and Achane being literally, if we're being blunt, we kind of alluded to this about JSN earlier. Devon Achane is the only player on that Miami offense you actually have to stop right now. Their top receivers are like Jalen Tolbert and Malik Washington or Tutu Atwell, depending on who you ask. Greg Dulcich at tight end, Malik Willis at quarterback. Devon Achane's the only player you got to stop. My thing is, though, when you watch Devon Achane play, first of all, we've seen this Dolphins team not be great. He still finds a way to score. He is one of those guys who can score every single time he touches the ball. And with the way that offense is built, there's a non-zero chance Devon Achane, and I'm not being over projected here, Devon Achane could legitimately catch 100 balls this year. I think it is in his wheelhouse based on what that offense is going to have to look like.
Going to have to look like is right, because if you saw Miami's offensive line last year, not Arizona Cardinals bad, but boy, was it not impressive in the slightest.
Yeah, not even a little bit.
Another one of my later favorite value picks, Jacoby Myers, Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars brought him in for a damn good reason. Brian Thomas is still there. I'm taking him too. Screw you guys. Anyway, Jacoby Myers, if you can't get Brian Thomas, is another one of my favorite sets of hands in the NFL. Very high catch rate, doesn't drop many passes. The Jaguars had to trade for him for a damn good reason because a lot of the wide receivers in Jacksonville were dropping a lot of passes last year. They were struggling with that. I think Brian Thomas will get better with that, but that's also going to be bad news for Parker Washington as well as Travis Hunter because it's going to be Jacoby Myers as a second wide receiver. So, why can't Brian Thomas and Jacoby Myers get more respect in ADP?
I'm sorry. Drafting with Mike is hard. We talk football way too much, and he is stealing players from me. I'm sorry. We're talking about Jacoby Myers. So here's the thing. I have had an up and down offseason with Jacoby Myers. I was everything you just said. I wrote in an article probably 2 months ago. I fully agree with everything you said. I have started to buy into a lot of the hype and coach speak we're hearing, where I do think Brian Thomas is going to get better. I don't know what to make of Parker Washington. That's what bothers me. I agree with you on Travis Hunter. I in my projections, I have Travis Hunter down as like a 50 target guy. I think they're going to be valuable targets. I don't know that he's going to see the volume. I am putting Brian Thomas down for like 125, 130 targets. I'm like making him our wide receiver one. Their wide receiver one. I'm not a Jaguars fan. I don't want to give that impression. So I had Jacoby at like 125 and Thomas at like 130 and Parker Washington at 75. And I'm like, that just feels so low. So I keep moving Myers down a little bit and Washington up a little bit. The fact of the matter is this: when you look at that team last year, Myers was their most dependable wide receiver outside of those like 4 games that Parker Washington popped. I don't know how any of that translates to this season. It's a very good football team, but it's one of those teams that's like too good for our own good as fantasy managers because you don't know who they're going to give the ball to. And this could be a situation where none of them are great for us in fantasy simply because they're all getting the ball evenly spread around, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that seems to be a lot of trending up with a lot of the offenses in today's league as well. The Chicago Bears are doing the same thing. Liam Cohen is doing the same thing with the Jaguars. They're trying to get the best out of every single sets of hands they can get out of their offenses, while other teams, like we were talking about earlier, are making the tight end the focal point of their offense. And I named multiple examples. I just grabbed Mark Andrews in the 15th round. I think we're going to see a resurgence of Mark Andrews now that John Harbaugh's, not laissez-faire, but his lame duck offense was not doing so well. He didn't really have top-notch coordinators working on his side either. Jesse Minter has Declan Doyle working on his side, coming out of the Ben Johnson School of Hard Knocks. The tight end got fed in the offense last year. I think Mark Andrews is due for a bounce back.
Yeah, it's funny. Andrews was the guy I projected up when I about 2 hours ago, I had a little bit more free time than I thought I was going to have before the show. So I decided to go in and do a quick run of my projections and see about guys I wanted to move up and down a little bit just based on camp things I had read. And Andrews was a guy who I moved up a little bit. Andrews, I was notoriously right around that like 13 where he just wasn't a starter for me, but I thought he was worth a flyer. I think he moved up to my tight end 10, where I'm like exactly what you were saying with Doyle being there, with the lack of a wide receiver too. If Mark Andrews is healthy, he is still the quote unquote wide receiver 2 in this offense. And so I think there's a lot of value there for Mark Andrews.
Yeah, the rookies that the Baltimore Ravens drafted this year, whether it's Jacoby Lane or that other guy whose name I'm forgetting right now, they're not going to be NFL ready out of the gate. They're going to need some time to get used to the NFL level when it's game day. But in the meantime, it's going to be the Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews show now that Isaiah Likely moved on to go chase John Harbaugh for the New York Football Giants.
Absolutely.
I love the Jake Ferguson pick by Vince Mapstone, by the way. That is a screaming value that I think too many people overlook, where Jake Ferguson is a terrific tight end that has a great set of hands. Dak Prescott loves chucking him the football. I don't understand why Jake Ferguson doesn't go higher either. I would rather have him over Isaiah Likely.
I can't agree with that. So Ferguson had 4 hot weeks last year. I will give you that. There are 2 things working against Ferguson this year. Hopefully we see a completely healthy CeeDee Lamb and a completely healthy George Pickens, which will naturally hurt Ferguson. And then the second thing, Mike, my goodness, you're killing me. The second thing is numerology. If you buy into it, this should be a down year for Dak Prescott. And so he's been doing that roller coaster thing where he's bad in the even years. And this is an even year. So I'm a little worried for Ferguson, but more importantly, I'm actually really in love with Likely. I know John Harbaugh is not going to call the offense, and I know we don't like Matt Nagy, but Matt Nagy does know how to use a tight end. Cole Kmet's kind of like breakout year was under Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's worked with Travis Kelce. Isaiah Likely was one of the first free agent signings for the New York Giants because John Harbaugh is there. And Harbaugh told him, I'm guaranteed, I don't know this. I'm not friends with these people. Harbaugh told him they're going to use him better than what they used him in Baltimore. I just think Likely ending up there, Matt Nagy knows how to use tight ends. I think Isaiah Likely is a sleeper tight end pick this year by a lot. So
I think I have to disagree with you now about Matt Nagy's effectiveness with the tight end, because his quarterback was Justin Fields with the Chicago Bears. Yeah. Fields loves targeting the tight end, which is why Mason Taylor was starting to look like a good tight end breakout when they were on the New York Jets together. Yeah. Here we go, Denver Broncos. I think that was more Justin Fields enjoying throwing to the tight end to Cole Kmet than Matt Nagy actually knowing how to drop a competent offensive playbook. He didn't exactly make Kelce look great.
Let me interrupt, ask a quick question. It doesn't look like everyone's doing it. Do you prefer that we go defense and kicker, or is it not? I know there are some drafts where they want you to do it and other drafts where they don't. I don't want to disappoint you here. So
it's up to you, my friend. You're my guest. I don't care if you want to just skip out on that. That's becoming a growing trend nowadays too.
I'll explain it at the end of the draft too, why I do it and when I do it, because there is a timing aspect to this as well. So
yeah, absolutely. Because there's more and more people these days that would rather just not bother drafting a kicker or a tight end this early, where they can figure out who's going to be most valuable, who do you need to drop to go get your kicker and defense / special teams week 1, just because you're probably going to stream them anyway. There's a low likelihood that you're going to get somebody like the LA Rams that is going to be probably an every week start because their defense looks freaking great on paper.
Yep, I agree wholeheartedly, and that's exactly where I was going to go with that. So all right.
I had to take the words out of your mouth.
Yeah.
But I still love to do drafting defenses and kickers because I want to get my units, one defensive unit and a kicker for week 1 that I know is at least I'm going to want to use, unless, somebody else makes it like an amazing trade, and maybe then I'll change my mind at that point. But I got to get the thicker kicker here for, for week 1 as well. Unfortunately, the thicker kicker was what finished off my Bears in the divisional round last season in an overtime thriller, which I was so happy to have. But like I was saying, though, I'm happy to have like a strong week 1 kicker or defense, and then knowing I'm probably going to drop them anyway for week 2, I'm totally fine with that, because
that's exactly where I stand.
When we take a look at what went in 19 and 20, Rashid Shaheed, Kenyon Sadiq, Jalen McMillan, Travis Hunter, those are guys that I would easily drop for a kicker or a defense.
Yep, and that's exactly where I stand with it. I write it in my article for Footballguys. It's for me, I'm going to spend the pick and then wait and see who's available. I will say, you kind of made one thing that I do like to say. If there is an elite defense who also has an elite week 1 matchup, they're worth a draft pick at that point. If you can lock that down. What I hate is, and I'm going to be honest, I have not dug in for this year yet, but what I hate is when there's an elite defense, but then they're playing the best offense in the league in week 1. And I'm like, you don't even want to start them in week 1, and you just spent a 10th round pick on them. Like, I just find that to be such a bad use of your draft capital at that point. So, and we didn't see that here. This has been a sharp group of drafters. Nobody touched tight end defense until the last 4 rounds. So.
Yeah, and even then, I have to disagree with anybody that gets their defense or kicker any time before the final 2 rounds, because when you look at the value that goes in rounds like 15, 16, and 17, and even 18, I would much rather take a shot on a Tyrone Tracy, Alvin Kamara, Jalen Coker, Woody Marks. I would rather have some dart throw PPR value that could have a potential every week flex option versus a defense or a kicker I'm going to freaking drop anyway after week 1.
Yeah, and the way I kind of looked at it, I grabbed Kenyon Sadiq just because I feel like he's an up-and-comer and I want to watch how he plays out camp. But Matt Stafford is kind of the point I want to make, and even Frito Bandito taking Kyler Murray as Mr. Irrelevant in this draft. I don't know if it's Frito's 4th quarterback or if it's his 3rd. I don't know if he has a quarterback up on the top of the board. 3rd. So 3rd is good. I went 4th because I'm in a situation now, where if one of my quarterbacks does get that catastrophic preseason injury, it's not going to happen. But if they do, I am still sitting on 3 quarterbacks. And if they do, now I have my cut to go get my defense or my kicker. I'm not worried about it. So he's consistent. He has one of the longest legs in the NFL. So.
See, I think it's interesting that you have Cameron Dicker at number 1 so far, because I absolutely believe he's a top 5 kicker, but number 1, I'm not so sure. I need to see what the Chargers offense with Mike McDaniel, what that looks like this season, which hopefully it's going to be better for Justin Herbert and Crew's sake. But what I try to do, it's not scientific, but I like to look for that offense that has it's functional enough to move down the field, but they suck at getting to the red zone where they're going to deploy a Brandon Aubrey, a Kaimi Fairbairn, a Cam Little, where a guy that
we saw with Jason Myers last year. Myers kicked so many field goals last year. So
exactly. Vince Mapstone points out that streaming kickers shows your goatness at the fantasy footballs. People are too scared to do the deep dive research. A lot of, even in the industry, people hate even having to look into kickers and defenses simply because they're too volatile and they don't like that. People want control over their destiny.
Vince is,
go
ahead, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in this funny game that we like to play, there is the luck factor to it that we 100%. Cannot absolutely outpredict when it comes to just which defensive units having a good day, which kickers having the most opportunities. And that's what I like about playing fantasy football as well, because with the main positions, yeah, you know what you're getting out of those, but you got to have that little bit of spice that can help you make or break your weeks.
Vince is in the Club Fantasy Listener League with me, and he can attest to this. The first thing I do on Mondays is I drop 9 times out of 10 my quarterback, my tight end, my kicker, and my defense if I don't have one of the elite guys. And then I don't spend my waivers on those guys. I spend my waivers on running backs and tight ends and wide receivers. And then I wait the week out. And then on Saturday, I drop whoever I didn't decide made the cut that week. And I go get my new kicker, my new defense, my new quarterback for the week. Now, last year I hit the home run in almost all of my leagues. I believed in Jacoby Brissett and was able to ride him into the playoffs in most leagues. So it works out really well for me.
So Jacoby Brissett went undrafted in
Yeah.
this 18
Well, a
two
lot of
quarterback league.
quarterbacks went undrafted.
Yeah, exactly. So the last one that went in this draft was Kyler Murray, which I think is perfectly fine for an 18-2 quarterback league, because if you're drafting more than 3 quarterbacks in a league like this, what the hell are you doing? Come on.
Hey, I did
but
it.
but yeah, you went with 4 quarterbacks as well. Because it's like what you were just explaining. Even if it's not going to be Stafford, that's a part of your strategy. You're going to wait to see which kicker, which defensive unit you're going to go grab.
I'm not going
and then
into
just
week 1 with 4 quarterbacks. So.
Exactly. You're gonna make sure that nobody else grabs these people off the waiver wire, just in case they have an explosive week.
Yep. In all honesty, thinking back at it, I would have not even grabbed Sadiq, and I would have grabbed another quarterback. I don't know who it would have been. I'm trying to remember who was out there. Kyler was one that I was debating with the Matt Stafford pick. I would have grabbed another quarterback and just waited out till week 1. If I have to drop a quarterback, I'm going to go in with my top 3. So I agree, 3 quarterbacks is the way to go. I'm going in with my top 3. But in the draft in early August, I always try to treat the draft as if we're doing it at the time we're doing it. In early August, I'm not touching a kicker or a defense. I'm going to use those picks to try to wait out injuries.
Yeah, so it's August 3rd on the date that is when we're recording this episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. If this were a real league, that's exactly what Ryan just said. You're probably not going to pick your kicker or defense this early in the season. I'm doing this for September 2nd, which
I love it.
I'm not doing this for a month later. So this is kind of more of like a diversion in case anybody from my league happens to be watching this. And then my strategy is going to probably change a month from now when we learn who's injured or who's getting hype and who's not getting hype and so on and so forth. So speaking of kickers, I got to ask you one more kicker question here, Ryan. So Brandon Aubrey has 12 dome games and a quote-unquote easier schedule versus easier defenses. I don't like to put too much weight on nuances and facts like this because I don't care if it's dome or grass outdoors. I just want the best talent possible because that's the way football coaches look at it too. I don't care if there's 20-mile-an-hour winds that day. If Cairo Santos can knock down those windy field goals, so should other professional kickers.
I don't disagree. The only thing I'd say is why risk it if you don't have to. So when you can get these kickers who play in a ton of dome games, the Jake Bates from Detroit is another one who comes to mind where it's an offense that could stall a little bit and they're constantly on the correct side of the 50. I'll take the guys who have more dome games. When I'm streaming, I'm going to be perfectly honest. If I look for a dome first, mainly because I'm the guy who on Sunday will, if I have an outdoor kicker, I go and look at the weather for that city. Like I do not play around. Kicker can swing a matchup. Anybody who says they can't, change your kicker scoring, have more fun with it. But 10 points from a kicker versus 5 points from a kicker is a 5-point win. And so I will pay attention to the weather if I am messing with an outdoor kicker. I will say there is something to Aubrey also being the best kicker in football. I will say there is something to him playing indoors where I don't ever have to do that extra bit of research.
So I speaking of kickers and defense, I'm not going to ask another specific one, but what I will say is that I use kickers and DSTs in my home dynasty league, which is 10 teams. And you just don't see that anymore because it's typically positions that you reserve for redraft in keeper leagues. Maybe some keeper leagues. I mean, there might not be all of them, but you don't typically see it in dynasty because there's not really any genuine dynasty value to these positions. But I'm a more traditional, classic, play it. Yeah, I'm just a traditionalist when it comes to this sort of stuff. So, but I also institute a 2 kicker and 2 DST limit so that people are not tempted to just hoard them all and act like that they're going to play keep away as some sort of like strategy that it doesn't actually work, but I've seen people try to do that, and I've gotten complaints about the position limit as well, which I'm like, well, I didn't only just do that, but I also reduced the scoring for kickers as well, so that you're not, like, banking off of, like, 17, 18-point weeks off of somebody like a Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah. So none of my dynasties have kickers anymore. Interestingly enough, my only dynasty that still has defense is the original Club Fantasy Dynasty League I joined that Josh Hudson runs. And Josh Hudson hates having defenses in any league, but he has left them in this league for some reason. And Evan, hilarious the stuff you say without realizing I'm that guy. I'll hoard defenses. I'm like, look, if it's the off season and there's nobody I want to throw on my team, I'll throw the defenses I think might be good. But again, you say it doesn't work. And in a way, you're right, because by the time the season rolls around, I cut myself down to 2 defenses, the 2 who are the absolute absolute best. I like Vince's most recent comment. This is the first podcast I'm going to share this. I had like a weird epiphany the other night. And that is that I feel like maybe we have babied ourselves as the fantasy community a little bit too much. And with all these flex spots and all this other stuff, Vince says he starts in a dynasty where they have to start 2 kickers. I was thinking there needs to be a league where everything we're used to starting, we go 1 higher up and we don't have a flex position. So you require 2 quarterbacks every week. You require 3 running backs every week. You require 4 wide receivers every week, 2 tight ends, 2 kickers, 2 defenses every week. It needs to be a 10-team league. You require this every single league and no flex spots. You have to make the most great roster decisions, lineup decisions every single week. And I feel like that would be such a challenge. I just haven't decided if it's something I want to try to like implement and have 9 sickos do this league with me. So, well,
Ryan, if you do it, count me in. I do want to try it for 1 year. As long as the price is not too high.
Oh, I would run it for free the first year just because I want to test it and make sure everything's perfect. So maybe I don't think I'll throw it together this year, but let's keep it on the back burner for next year. It's something that I don't know. I still have time this year. Maybe I will. So
okay, yeah. If you do it this year or next year, count me in.
I'll get you and Vince in there for sure. So
excellent. I'd love that. Vince definitely wants in as well. So this would be great. We got 3 people so far.
Yep.
This kind of comes back to another question I had in general, Ryan. So you said you do start to hoard defenses toward the end of the season when there's really nobody on the waiver wire that looks appealing that you could possibly start in your lineup. But honestly, I don't necessarily agree with that strategy because there are guys that end up being league winners that nobody tends to predict because they're in a position in which they all of a sudden have to get the football because this is like the 3rd or 4th string running back in an injured team like the 49ers.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's a great point that where I'm doing myself a disservice. The fact of the matter is you got to have the foresight to get that guy ahead of time, but you're absolutely right every week. And this year was one of the worst, Evan, where we were talking about week 17 the way we used to talk about, or we normally talk about week 18. Fantasy people were being rested. We didn't know who we were going to start in these championship games. It got very strange. I think that's such an excellent point that wasting an extra spot on kicker and defense, or specifically in this case, defense, is a terrible idea when you should be hoarding backup running backs and hoping you have the lottery ticket, especially if you happen to play in a dynasty league with no trade deadline, because if that lottery ticket could be a 3rd round or a 2nd round pick for you next year if you guess right. So
yeah, and no trade deadline is always one that I try to avoid in all of my leagues.
Me too. Thank you. I get yelled at by the club fantasy people that I won't get rid of the trade deadline. So
yeah, no trade deadline. You're just asking for collusion in the playoffs.
I agree.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I will stick to my guns with what I like in these leagues. I don't run any leagues that are open to the public like you guys do, but if I did, I'm sure I would not be a popular commissioner because I like doing things against the grain.
I'm much, I'm going to use the term nicer in the club fantasy listener league than I am in the club fantasy writers dynasty league. I'm not nice when people are screwing around. I basically just tell people stop screwing around. Like this is what we're doing. I don't want to hear it. I put most things to a vote in all of my leagues, but I have made it very clear in the club fantasy dynasty leagues, I'm not putting to a vote no trade deadline. I fundamentally disagree with it. I straight up told them, if you want no trade deadline, you need to find a new commissioner. I was like, I'm not doing it. With the listeners league, I'm very more open to suggestions. I try to keep it fun. It's a pretty basic league. We added some like tight end premium and I think some return points. But for the most part, it's a very basic league. I try to keep it very fun. The one thing that's hard with our listener league specifically, and Vince can attest to this, is our listener league. I like to do live on our mock draft show every year. So we don't run it as a slow draft. So the one thing that I am a tyrant is you need to be there for the draft. But I try to be as nice as possible. Our good buddy Vince is down in Australia. I've moved the draft time this year to make sure that we're in his correct time zone while also playing well with our time zone. And so I try to do my best to make it as open and available to everybody. I think I have 3 spots available in the listener league this year. I do have some people who have been very loyal to the show. Frito Bandito, if you're still watching, I want to get a hold of you. I think I want to get you one of those 3 spots. So.
Heck yeah, and I know he listens to the show as well. So when he comments, that'll at least,
absolutely,
hopefully get him the information. But so I'm glad to hear that as a commissioner, you're responsible enough to put the vast majority, pretty much just about everything to a vote. I do the same thing for my home dynasty league, which we're going into our 7th season. I started it in 2020 during the pandemic, and this was the first year that I made changes without putting it to a vote, which was instituting a position limit on kickers and defenses because I didn't want people hoarding anymore. And go figure, the one time I use an executive decision, that's when I get the complaints.
I promise. Okay, so I didn't know the show was going to turn into this. I have also done. Hey, it's Frida. All right, I will send you the invite. I'll send you the details to make sure you can draft with us. I'm sure you can. I'll send you the details on Sleeper when we're off of the show. I want to share this story. So my home league, I've put everything to a vote. Our home league is hitting its 20th year this year. It's always been a vote. A few years ago, we had issues with people tanking. It is a keeper league where I allow 1 year of draft pick trading. So you can trade the following year's draft picks. And we had people tanking, and it ended up changing the playoff picture. And the league was livid. I was livid. I instituted a draft lottery system to replace the worst pick gets the first pick. Worst team gets the first pick. So I instituted a draft lottery system, no votes. Most of the league is fine with this, and even the person who I'm going to mention is fine with it. My cousin, to this day, every time he's like, the one thing I don't agree with is that you didn't put no tanking to a vote. Every time he gets a chance, he says, I just don't agree that you didn't put it to a vote. And I was like, look, man, it was for the greater good of the league. Everything I do is to make this league keep going. This league is 20 years in. It has almost collapsed, I would say 2 or 3 times. We've kept it going. And if I would have allowed tanking, the league was going to collapse. I wasn't going to let that happen. So
I see so many leagues that allow the best pick to go to the worst team, which just encourages tanking on purpose to be the worst. I have another solution that I think you may or may not like. In my dynasty league, what I do is that the winner of the consolation bracket gets the number 1 overall pick.
We did that for a while. This league is very competitive, and you're allowed to keep 3 people. That ended up being too much of an advantage for the guy who finished in 7th place. So what we ended up instituting, I think a lot of people are familiar with the website 100 Yard Rush. Came really popular with Scott Fishbowl a few years ago. Yep. You can give 9 points of luck on 100 Yard Rush. So I have come up with a matrix where you can earn up to 9 points of luck throughout the season. So everybody starts on even footing, but based on your wins, on your points, if you beat a playoff team, you can earn a point of luck at the end of the season. And then everybody gets their luck. And then we do it NHL draft style. We run 1 race. Whoever wins that race gets the first pick. We run a second race. Whoever wins that race gets the second pick. If with the third race, the third pick. And then from that point forward, it's worst down. So the worst team can never get worse than the 4th pick overall, but it's a lot more draft lottery style and a chance for good teams to still win that pick. It happened this year. Interestingly enough, because of trades, the same guy got the 1st and 3rd pick of the draft this year. So
it's fascinating. I kind of like that idea, to be honest, because 100 Yard Rush is what I use to determine the random draft order that I have in my home redraft league, which is also 10 teams. But what I do is that I crank up the luck for the guy who won the league last year, so that
I love that. That's perfect.
They get the number 1 overall pick anyway, and I just didn't want to have to, change the format of the.
No, I think that's really cool. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so they get the number 1 pick, and then whoever else that's the way I randomize the order, because who wants to click on random on Sleeper? It's not as fun.
It's boring. Yep. Nope. And then my league 3 years ago, we started our own podcast. It's just a really tiny little podcast. I don't publish or promo it anywhere or anything. But we do a live show with last year's champion for the new draft order, and we just like sit there and trash talk each other and just have a really good time. It's 14 guys. Of the 14 of us, 4 of us have been in the league the entire 20 years. All of us kind of grew up together. It's a really nice time.
Yeah, and that's even though you don't advertise it as much, I still think that's a great idea as well to get everybody on the show and just talk shit about each other.
We always invite people onto the show. My younger brother became a couple years ago our first ever 2-time champion. So we agreed. Well, we didn't agree. I agreed. Made the league real mad. We named the league after him for a year because he was our first ever back-to-back champion, and so everyone got mad about that. But like I said, we've all been doing this for so long. It's a good time.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I if I could bring this back a second to the mock draft as well. So I think with the exception of X238 Doer, who auto drafted the entire draft, I think everybody approached this pretty smart, not going for quarterback too soon, getting the guys that they want right away, at quarterback, or excuse me, at running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So I would say that a team that sticks out to me would be Frito Bandito's team.
Absolutely.
Because I think waiting at tight end was a really good idea for this format, and getting 3 terrific running backs and 4 terrific wide receivers for the first 7 rounds. I love this team and I love this strategy. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to pull it off in my 8-team 2-quarterback league that I don't commish, but I think this strategy is going to be something I'm going to consider for my own draft.
Yeah, I'm running the quickest scan ever. I like your team a lot as well. I don't know that it's going to be easy to beat Frito Bandito, and I think the pick that seals it is all the way down. How the heck do you get Travis Kelce in the 17th round of a fantasy draft? So this is a team, Frito Bandito, who waited on tight end their entire draft. They are starting Jahmyr Gibbs, Travion Henderson. I've been making this statement on drafts lately, on shows lately. I think there's something to Travion Henderson we're not accounting for. Every year we have these running backs who have these like crazy touchdown explosions. I think that might be Travion Henderson this year. He showed an incredible ability to score from anywhere on the field last year. This is a team that continues to get better. You now have A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs playing on the outside, so now you cannot stack the box. I think I'm not saying this is going to happen, but if you want a long shot to score 15 touchdowns this season, I think it's Travion Henderson. So you get Gibbs and Henderson, very similar players. You had already been complimentary of Quinshon Judkins. You've already been complimentary of his receivers, but let's talk about Trevor Lawrence and Dak Prescott. These guys were both top 10, top 8 quarterbacks last season. And then to get Travis Kelce, who was the tight end 3 1 year ago in fantasy football as the 17th pick, not to mention Dallas Goedert. I'm a little lower on Goddard than most people because of Eli Stowers. It's hard to look at what Frito did and not be like, that's the blueprint. It just makes a lot of sense. Whereas, like I said, I like, let's be clear, you're always going to like teams in an 8-team mock draft, but Kelce at the 17 is just cherry on top of a perfect draft.
Why is Travis Kelce going so low in ADP so far this year? Is the news of this being his final season really souring people?
It should be the other way around. He's going to ball out in his final season if we believe it's finally his final season. I think what's happening right now is the other part we have to watch is all of our stuff right now are the still super intense fans. I don't like calling people casual fans, but the seasonal fans are still about 2 weeks away from coming back. Seasonal fans are still going to put more respect on Travis Kelce's name than the hardcore people who are playing right now because they know the name. And I think that means something. And in a way, this is for the first time in a long time where this makes more sense than what we're doing. We have all convinced ourselves he should have retired. He got married. It should have been his final season. He didn't look that great last year. I love that he didn't look that great last year. He was the tight end 3 in fantasy. We have built this narrative for too many months now, basically starting in December of last year through now, where Travis Kelce is not good. We got to pull that back. Travis Kelce is still very much a top 10 tight end. This is a 10-team league. He should not be going in the 17th round of any draft, plain and simple.
You wouldn't know that he didn't look that good last season based on where he finished. Still got 108 targets, still caught 76 of them, still got 5 touchdowns, and that was in a Matt Nagy offense, which was so bland and vanilla, it made people believe Kelce sucks. I think it was Matt Nagy's offense that was making him look like shit.
And Vince Mapstone brings up an interesting thing as well. There is the Mahomes injury, but that also is getting put to bed right now as well as Mahomes is cleared for all practice. So yeah, there were so many things working against Kelce last year, and they're still and he still finished so high. And so all in all, I think we're outsmarting ourselves when it comes to Travis Kelce.
Yeah, and we're going to have to see what that looks like, too, when Patrick Mahomes allegedly is going to be ready for week one. He already took, this past Wednesday, he took 11 on 11 reps in practice that he's probably going to play week one, even though I don't agree with him coming back too early because I think he's playing at less than 100%. But, you know, when you're the franchise quarterback, you're going to set that example being like, no, I got to leave this locker room. I got to do this. And it's no knock on Justin Fields, but like, if this is my prized possession against the Denver Broncos, absolutely, I get it. They want to play Mahomes against a big rival, but I'd rather have a healthier Fields out there.
It's the same argument I was making last year about bringing Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels back too early. At that point, they weren't playing for anything. And I'm not saying the Chiefs aren't playing for anything, but I'm also saying you can kind of see how the first month plays out. You don't need to do wild things with your franchise. I was very adamant that neither Burrow nor Daniels should have played last year. I ended up looking really smart when it came to Jaden Daniels because he did get re-injured and when Washington was playing for nothing.
I'm seeing a lot more of these rushing quarterbacks that are going in the ahead of a lot of established quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Bo Nix. Now, Bo Nix is not the sexiest looking rushing quarterback. If I don't know if that was the best way to put it, but you know, compared to like Jackson Dart, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, those are guys that look good when they're rushing with the football. I to be honest, like Bo Nix has been QB7 over the last couple of seasons, which were his first 2 seasons in the league. It seems like the fantasy industry doesn't want to believe he's a top 10 quarterback. When will Bo Nix get the respect he deserves?
It's likely going to be this season, and I started off very high on Bo Nix. Bo Nix was like my QB5 in my first run of rankings. He has fallen. I'm down to like 12, 13, maybe even 14 on him right now. And I think the thing that I didn't take into account that came to light later is Bo Nix picked up a very late injury, and I would like to see Bo Nix come into this season healthy. I don't know if Bo Nix is even going to be a runner, and that runner has been a part of his game. But we also can't discount that they added Jalen Waddle. This might be a team that's ready to come out and just let Bo Nix sling it. And there was an interesting, I don't have his stats right in front of me. It won't take me long to get them. Bo Nix's touchdown drop from year 1 to year 2 was pretty big, 29 in year 1 to 25 in year 2. If we see him approach 30 touchdowns again this season, Bo Nix is once again a top 10 quarterback that we're all just letting fall.
Yeah, he has yet to throw for more than 29 touchdown passes, and that's with Cortland Sutton as his best pass catcher. Jalen Waddle, I think a lot of people have forgotten what a damn good wide receiver he was, especially in his rookie year with the Dolphins, and just how much the Dolphins just fucked up the offense.
Well, there's that. You also can't discount the fact that Tua Tagovailoa is just not that good a quarterback. Bo Nix is a better quarterback than Tua Tagovailoa. And so we saw Tua Tagovailoa's limitations. We saw certainly his injury limitations in Miami. None of these things did Jalen Waddle any favor. You're going to see a much better version of Jalen Waddle. And putting it bluntly, I mean, I like Mike McDaniel, but I think Sean Payton is a more complete head coach as well, and he's going to know what to do with Jalen Waddle. So
I agree. He may hate fantasy football, and he's not going to let us have any of his running backs be reliable running backs in fantasy, but that's a coach that plays to win, and the Broncos look like actual Super Bowl contenders. They didn't quite make it, but they're a team I'm going to be watching out for years to come.
Well, and I think that's part of, not to get away from the fantasy aspect of it, I think if this were 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Mahomes would have sat the first month. You have a very good Chargers team and a very good Broncos team, and the Chiefs really can't afford to wait 4 games to see how everything's going to go. And like Vince said, you can't keep Mahomes off the field. And I think the Chargers and Broncos being this competitive is part of that. You don't want to go into this 2-2 and have the Chargers be 3-1 and the Broncos be 3-1, and you're a game behind after the first month. So
yeah, too important of a division to have to ignore. You got to get your star player back out there as well. So as we're closing out this show, Ryan, I asked this of all of my guests whenever there's time. Whose team was your favorite?
Well, I've already spent a lot of time on Frito Bandito. I don't know that I can just pick a favorite, but you know what? I will go. Let's talk about Mike's team. I'm sure nobody wants to hear me talk about someone from the network's team, but I think we can talk a little bit about Mike's team because of the amount of times he sniped me. I do too many drafts with a lot of people. When you look at the wide receivers right off the bat, you get JSN, you get AJ Brown, and then you get Luther Burden and Mike Evans. Now, Mike Evans picks up that injury today. The power station in San Francisco is doing that work. But even if you are worried about Mike Evans, Luther Burden, I think, is an up-and-coming player. I'll be interested to actually hear your thoughts when I'm done talking here, Evan, as a Bears fan. But then you get Cortland Sutton, who I think is being completely undervalued. I like Waddle too, but there was 104 targets for Troy Franklin last year. Cortland Sutton is still going to get his. And then if you scroll or you look in round 14, this was one of the snipes. I love Wan'Dale Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson is one of the few free agents who is leaving a team to go to the exact same offense because Brian Daboll is in Tennessee. Last 2 seasons, Wan'Dale Robinson has been sitting at, I believe, 140 targets. Exactly 140 targets. There is no reason to think he is going to not hit between 130 and 140 targets again this season. In any version of PPR format, I think you cannot sleep on Wan'Dale Robinson. And then Mike comes back and does it again. You get a very safe running back in James Cook, another very safe running back in Javonte Williams, and then you're betting on the upside of Cam Scatterbo. Same exact thing with quarterback. Super safe with Herbert, upside of Jackson Dart. Mike really went with, I'm going to get my safe player. I'm going to get my high upside player. Not adding a third quarterback is interesting in this format, but as I mentioned, like off the top of my head, Bryce Young did not get drafted. Aaron Rodgers did not get drafted. I'm forgetting other players off the top of my head. Jacoby Brissett, who you brought up, did not get drafted. Mike can still go land a third quarterback when he's ready to move on from one of these other players. Jalen Coker was another player of mine that he sniped. I think Jalen Coker is a really solid player with the injury to Chris Brazzell. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how much they use Coker because they did pay him this offseason.
Coker was looking pretty damn good in that Panthers offense, too. Yep. A great complementary piece to Teterow and McMillan. So I think that's going to be beneficial for Bryce Young. As much as the Panthers kind of ruined his first few seasons in the league, he's going to be serviceable. I don't think this is going to be championship caliber, but I think for fantasy purposes, you can count on Coker for flex value.
Yeah, one of the things we talked about when we did our 8-team mock is you got to kind of bet on upside in an 8-team mock. Everybody has a good team. You have to find that advantage somewhere. And so there's spots on all of these rosters. But like I said, with Mike, I found it interesting. He got the safe pick and then the upside pick on a lot of different positions.
That's classic Mike in a nutshell. Get your safe picks. Phil makes fun of him all the time for it, but I don't hate it. I love safe picks.
Yep. Safe picks make the playoffs. Then you just got to figure out how to win it. So.
You know it. So this has been a great mock draft. We're going to start to wrap things up too. So ladies, gentlemen, and all those in between or outside of it, this has been another episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan. One last time, I'd like to thank my guest Ryan Weisse for joining me. Be sure to follow Mike on Twitter at @thefantasy5, and be sure to subscribe to Club Fantasy FFL and the Football Guys on YouTube as well. Links are in the description below where you'll find them. Ryan, is there anything else that the people should be checking out from you?
I think we got it all at the beginning of the episode. I always like to shine my light on other people. So Club Fantasy also has a really cool program called Women of Fantasy Football, run by Faith Enos along with Josh Hudson. I don't think we're doing our charity leagues this year, but just support women in sports. One of my favorite things that happened at our Scott Fishbowl draft this year is someone didn't show up and someone else's wife was willing to jump in. So 3 of my 9 members in Scott Fishbowl are women. And I think that's just so awesome to see the sport growing. There were so many women at the Scott Fishbowl draft. So just be kind. Don't be a dick. That's been on my Twitter handle forever. Like I said, you can follow me on Twitter if you want. I'm mainly a retweet guy. But I do put rankings and all my stuff out. For the most part, you're going to find my content at Club Fantasy. You're going to find me in like roundtable articles and things like that, and my rankings over at Football Guys. So.
Excellent. Be on the lookout for that. Footballguys.com for more of those articles like I showed at the beginning of the show. You'll find his Welcome Back to Fantasy Football article in the beginners subsection of the article section on footballguys.com. So we're going to wrap this episode up for tonight. So, folks, be sure to tune in next week for a 14-team, you heard me, 14-team, 1-quarterback PPR Redraft League mock draft. And joining me for that one is going to be the great Andrew Lupole, who is a favorite of mine from Scott Fishbowl's Chicago live drafts. He's always entertaining in all the right ways. You don't want to miss that one, so be sure to stick around. Subscribe to the Fantasy Football Network if you're not already, so that you make sure you don't miss that episode. This has been another episode of Monday Night Mock Drafts with Evan, signing off. Have a great night, folks. We'll see you all next week. Take care.